Welcome everyone to our spoiler review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. This is filled with spoilers. As soon as we're done with this introduction, we are talking spoilers. If you have not seen the movie and you don't want it spoiled, stop watching immediately.
You have been warned. We have a non-spoiler video that is on our channel that you can watch. It's about 20 minutes long. That we talk about our general impressions and feelings after the first time we saw the movie, without spoiling anything. Now we have seen it 2 times. We just got back from the theater, and we are going to be talking about all of the major details, and we would ruin the movie for you if you haven't seen it already with what we're going to talk about. So please, please, please do not watch this unless you've already seen The Rise of Skywalker. But full disclosure, this is the second attempt at us filming this. Our first file just got corrupted, and we were about 40, how long?
45 minutes, yeah.
45 minutes into the spoiler talk, and then it all crashed, and we lost all the footage. So we are revamping our game plan here. We have an outline where we're hopefully not going to be rambling.
We went too in depth in the last one. This has given us a chance to talk about likes and dislikes, our spoiler review.
That's
not
right.
Our spoiler recap.
Yeah, we were recapping
minute by minute.
We were recapping the whole movie and realized we don't need to recap. We need to review.
Are we rambling right now? We're rambling.
You know what? That's kind of our brand, though. That's why they're here. They love the rambling.
Okay, so here we go. Spoiler talk. Sean, hit us with your first thing.
Okay, I want to talk about my likes, and so I think the thing that carries the movie for me, and subsequently carries the sequel trilogy for me, is the story of Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
He is my favorite character in this trilogy, and I think the most interesting character arc of the trilogy now with The Rise of Skywalker. The first major spoiler and thing that I really liked narratively about this movie is Kylo Ren's redemption, the death of Kylo Ren, and the rebirth and the rise of Ben Solo.
Yeah, Ben Solo was sweet.
Loved it. I thought it was so well done. To me, the pivotal scene of this movie and the emotional crux of the movie is the Han Solo cameo, which was super surprising to me. I was not expecting Han to show up, Harrison Ford to show up. And really, even before that, the whole sequence of Leia reaching out and saying Ben, which distracts Ben, and he drops a lightsaber. Rey then subsequently stabs him, which I don't necessarily...
Kylo drops the saber.
Yeah, sorry. Kylo drops the saber. Rey stabs Kylo.
Killing Kylo Ren.
And then I know you have some thoughts on that too, about the whole healing scene, so I'll let you talk about that. But because I think it's a really good idea, a good insightful idea that you had. But his conversation with Han, that is almost a mirror image of a scene of the conversation he has with Han in The Force Awakens on Starkiller Base.
Yep.
This same dialogue. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Obviously, in Force Awakens, that meant he wanted to fully commit to the dark side, but he knew he had to kill his father. In this one, he wants to shed, the Kylo Ren persona and turn back to the light, and ultimately go. I think he realizes go and face Palpatine and perhaps give his life to defeat Palpatine and save Rey. And he, I just thought that was really, really touching. It was one of 3 scenes. It was the only scene where I had multiple tears streaming down my face.
That was a good scene.
Especially when he says "Dad." I was like, oh my gosh. Like, just multiple tears going down my face when that scene is happening. So I thought that was super well done. I loved the whole Ben Solo arc in the movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I really enjoyed Ben Solo at the end. I'm glad that we got to see his redemption. I think I was in the camp before the movie, and I didn't want to see him redeemed because I thought he was too evil. But I was proven wrong, and I'm glad that I was wrong because I really like that he came back.
Now, to keep with that theme, the one thing that I didn't like about the Ben Solo thing, I'm not the hugest fan that he died
Yeah,
at the end.
I'm not a fan either,
And
but I think I know the reason why he
yeah,
does die.
it doesn't necessarily. I think a lot of the criticism we're seeing just in the last couple days is people are picking one of these plot points and acting like it's ruining the entire movie for them. The fact that Ben Solo dies is ruining the movie for some people. The fact that Rey's a Palpatine ruining the movie for some people. I'm like, some of the things I don't like as much, but none of them were like a deal breaker for
Yep.
me with Rise of Skywalker. I didn't want Ben to die. Um, I feel like we saw that in Return of the Jedi already with Vader dying. Why did he have to die? It just narratively, I'm like, all right, he has to die, I guess. But I really wanted him to survive, but he didn't.
This is the reason why I think Ben had to die, though.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. I did not understand why. So let's recap just a little bit of the scene. Leia senses that she needs to do something. We learn from Maz that Leia senses she needs to do something. Maz is like, somehow knows everything that's going on all the time.
First of all, Maz Kanata is used in this movie to supplement Leia. When they don't have footage of Carrie Fisher explaining something, Maz is like just provides exposition for what Leia is doing.
Right.
That's like literally all she does in this movie.
I am glad they made Maz less creepy in this movie. She was creepy in the last one.
I was ready for a little Maz Chewbacca kiss at the end of this movie. The only kiss I wanted in this movie, by the way.
We see, okay, so Rey and Kylo are fighting. Leia knows what she needs to do, which to me seems like she knows Kylo is about to die. She knows her son is about to die. So she calls out to him, and he is distracted, drops his saber, Rey stabs him. In that moment, this is headcanon to me. In that moment, Kylo Ren is dead. Then we see Leia kind of, show the fact that she is dead, and Ben is healed. Sean pointed out to me that Ben no longer has the scar. In fact, the scar is disappearing.
In the scene, you can see it disappear from his face.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that disappearing scar is from Rey healing him. I think that he is now taking on Leia's life force. The reason why I believe that is because Leia's body does not disappear when she dies. All the other Jedis that we've seen who have become one with the Force, we first saw it with Obi-Wan, we saw it with Yoda, we saw it then with, we didn't see it with Anakin, we then saw it with Luke. We see their bodies disappear immediately. Leia's did not, which I at first was like, why does she not? Is she not strong enough in the Force? Like, there's no way they're going to say that about Leia. Until her body disappears when Ben gives his life force to Rey to bring her back. I think Ben is not giving Rey his own. I think he is transferring Leia's to Rey. And because that is then complete, both Ben and Leia become one with the Force. Leia's body can disappear, Ben's can disappear, and Rey, who used to be Rey Palpatine died. It is now Rey Skywalker. She literally has the life force of a Skywalker in her, which then is why she tells the old lady on Tatooine her name is Rey Skywalker, because she knows I have Skywalker life force in me.
I think that is such an interesting and cool idea. And, it could be completely wrong, first of all.
It could be.
But I think that is probably one of the more insightful things I've seen come out of this movie, that is a possibility, because you're right. Ben Solo disappears, becoming one with the Force, presumably, and at that exact moment, Leia also becomes one with the Force. She's been lying in state for days,
It's
maybe.
almost like her work is not yet complete.
Like she can't be at peace and become one with the Force until she knows her son is also okay,
Mm-hmm.
and he becomes one with the Force.
Almost as if Leia is keeping Ben alive, and Ben knows that, and knows because then with the Han Solo scene, he knows what he needs to do. He knows that he needs to give this life. He knows he needs to kill Palpatine and save Rey. I don't know if he knows he needs to save Rey, but that's my thought on it.
And one of the things that I talked about after the Force Awakens with you, and in 2015 when we saw that, I remember being on a phone call with you and us discussing it. And then when we walked out of Last Jedi, one of the things that I felt like I didn't get out of those first two movies was enough of the parental relationship between Kylo and Han and Leia.
Yep.
In Force Awakens, I felt like, okay, Kylo kills Han, and that scene is like interesting and it's a great scene. But I almost felt like I almost wish that I could have gotten a little bit more relationship building to feel the full weight and impact of what just happened. And then in Last Jedi, I was expecting, I hope we get a Leia Kylo interaction, and Leia is instrumental in his redemption. And we didn't really get any
Nope.
Kylo Leia interaction. We got Luke Kylo interaction, but and then now in this movie, I'm like, they did as well as they could have with where the story was at this point. I was pretty satisfied with the, even though it was just his memory, his conversation with his father, very impactful. I think a great scene, and the fact that Leia, you know, reaches out to him in her final moments to give that last bit of love or life force or whatever it is to help him remember who he is.
Right. I think we both agree that Kylo Ren's story is very good and well done. The death at the end is disappointing, but
it's disappointing. And another kind of somewhat disappointing thing to me, I know we're jumping around a lot, but I'm sticking with this Ben Solo theme, is he becomes one with the Force, but when Rey is at the end on Tatooine, we only see Luke and Leia's Force Ghost.
Where is Ben Solo?
And I felt like I wanted to see Ben Solo's Force Ghost next to his mother. I wanted to see him standing next to Leia.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. So, but that brings in another interesting dynamic, though, of the Ben Solo thing, which is we did not get any interaction between Force Ghost Luke and Kylo Ren or Ben Solo.
That we thought we would.
I thought we were going to get that.
See you around, kid.
I thought that was something that The Last Jedi set up, and one of the threads from The Last Jedi was, in my mind, Luke's failure as a teacher and failure in instructing his nephew, and I felt like Luke maybe deserved some redemption there, and that he could have had a moment where he reconciled with Ben or Kylo or whatever.
And maybe Luke does talk to Ben, we just don't see it.
Yeah, well, if we don't see it, then as if we don't think it happens. I mean, how are we supposed to? Well, maybe he does. That's a nice thought. Well, I want to see it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the whole Ben Solo arc. My thoughts on it. I thought it was fantastic. My only little things that I didn't like, I wasn't a fan of him dying, and I thought it would have been a nice touch for him to be a Force ghost at the end.
Yeah. Why can't he and Rey just be lovers?
But let's talk about the kiss then. At the end.
Yesterday, I thought it was not a romantic kiss. I thought it's just an appreciative kiss on the lips. But there was some.
It is a long kiss.
It's a longer kiss
for it not to be romantic.
Yeah, it's definitely romantic.
Like, let's reenact and see if we can go. We can go that long without feeling romantic feelings.
Rey is. Well, I mean, it's a sweet kiss.
First of all, both times that we've watched this, Joseph has made me laugh in the theater where it happens, and Joseph goes, "That was the kiss of death."
Which is a quote from Duck Dynasty.
That's right. And the second time I knew it was coming, and I still laughed.
Yeah.
that they kiss and he smiles and then, oh, I don't feel so good, and he keels over.
Talk about Romeo and Juliet, huh?
It was a Romeo and Juliet for sure. I don't feel like that kiss was necessary.
I don't think so either.
I don't.
There's a lot of things I don't feel like were necessary in this movie, and that was
true.
one of them.
That's true. I just feel like it wasn't necessary, and I'm thinking in my head, does Rey now love Kylo?
I guess.
Were they in love? And why were they in love?
Ben. She loves Ben.
She doesn't know Ben.
She does.
She
Kissed
barely interacted with Ben Solo. Most of her relationship is with Kylo Ren. And I felt the same way. The same thing we asked about Padme and Anakin.
She wanted to take the hand of Ben Solo.
The same thing we asked about Padme and Anakin.
What does she see in him?
Why does Padme even like Anakin, let alone love him? Why does Rey love Ben Solo? I don't know why. I don't think that there's a good answer. And so I didn't think that there should be a kiss. I just felt like it was like, nah, I'm not buying this.
Okay, let's talk about Palpatine.
Yeah.
Palpatine is the worst part of the movie for me. For you? For me.
Yes, but yes, I would, because it makes it sound like I don't like the movie, I would say I think Palpatine is the element of the movie that
you dislike the most?
Works against the movie the most.
Let me ask you guys a question. If Rey was not the granddaughter of Palpatine, how would that change the movie fundamentally? I don't think it would. I think we could still have the exact same movie minus 2 or 3 lines of dialogue, and she could just be a nobody who has some dark side temptations, and it would be the exact same movie. And she doesn't have to be the granddaughter of Palpatine.
So that was the moment.
What is fundamental about it?
The first time we saw the movie, that is the moment when Kylo tells her he wanted, to kill you or whatever because you aren't just powerful, you have his power because you're his granddaughter, you're a Palpatine. There was this collective reaction in our audience, and that's when Joseph screamed out over the whole movie theater, "What?" and got a big laugh. But it was to me, I had avoided all spoilers, and so that was a shock. That was a shock to me when that happened, and I thought to myself, how is this working?
Yeah.
First of all, who is loving on Papa Palpatine here and creating babies with him?
Is it post or pre face melting? Is that what Alex says?
I feel like
it's like the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child when we learned that Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange had a kid. Like, no. Palpatine does not have, unless it's like a Shmi Skywalker where Palpatine.
Maybe it was a grown baby in a tube, a clone.
Oh, maybe so.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Oh,
which brings us back to
let's talk about the clones.
The beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So this was in our extended
45-minute talk.
We see Kylo Ren come in to the planet's name is
Exegol.
I'm going to spell it Exigol. Exegol. We see a vat of Snokes, multiple vats of lots of Snokes, which Sean and I had a very funny conversation about. Is why do you have multiple Snokes? You run out of one, which we did in episode 8, and you have multiple of them. Why not bring one out? Why do you have multiple if you're not going to use them?
That seems like the perfect opportunity in Last Jedi when Kylo Ren kills Snoke 1.0, whatever that one was called.
Bring out Snoke 1.1.
Yeah, bring out another one, and that would be the ultimate Palpatine manipulation to be like, to bring another one out and for Snoke to say to Kylo, "You thought you killed me? You can't kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm invincible. I'm immortal." And then Kylo would really be freaking out like, I sliced this dude in half, and he is back standing in front of me in the flesh. He has cheated death.
Right.
And instead, it's like, why do you have them all in this incubator
I just
over
have
here?
them.
And for the last year, since The Last Jedi, you haven't used them at all.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. The other thing we were talking about is, are these Snoke clones sentient? Do they have their own thoughts and free will, or are they just puppets, basically, that Palpatine animates and controls everything they do?
Well, if we learned that Palpatine does not learn that Ben and Rey are dyads in the Force until the end of the movie, he then realizes it. But I feel like Snoke knew that in Last Jedi, because he's the one who created the connection between Kylo and Rey. So, how did Palpatine not learn that information from Snoke?
It brings up a good question about this whole
Palpatine introduces a lot of plot holes.
That he, in a movie that has so much plot and answers jam packed into it, where they're answering this and it's exposition, answering all this stuff. We're getting all these answers. Palpatine is the one element that is just opening cans and cans of worms, where it's like he's just leaving all these questions.
How did he survive? I'll just rapid fire these questions. How did he survive the fall? How did he survive the explosion? How did he get to Exegol? Who are the people that are taking care of him? Why does he have so many Snokes? How did he originally possess, I don't know if it's the right word, but how did he originally get into the head of Ben Solo to put all those voices in his head? How did he amass a giant fleet of Star Destroyers?
Who built that fleet?
In secrecy. Who staffs the fleet? How has he kept it under wraps this whole time? Like, what is his ultimate goal? To destroy the galaxy? To what?
Is that husk of a shell of a body his original body from Return of the Jedi that someone recovered from the Death Star debris? Or is that a new body that's like hooked up to that life support machine?
I don't think he's alive. Sean's mother said, and will live in infamy now forever, he is filled with
dark side formaldehyde.
Dark side formaldehyde.
She thinks that all those acolyte devout people are all these Sith devotees, and their
It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
Their energy and their life force and their devotion to the Sith are fueling Palpatine through those tubes in what she has coined dark side formaldehyde.
Yeah,
which sounds like a great band name that we're going to start.
So the Palpatine stuff is strange. Let's go to the end.
First of all, when we first meet him at the beginning, real quick, and I love that whole opening scene. I loved Kylo's whole attitude. Like, I'm here to kill you.
I'm here to...
Like, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over it. But when our first glimpse of Palpatine, a couple weeks ago, we were asking, will we even see Palpatine in this movie? Or is this just going to be a voice?
I didn't think we'd see him. I thought we'd just hear his voice. I didn't think we'd see him in the flesh.
Not only do we see him, we see this. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Weird zombie version of Palpatine. And when the first time we saw him and the lights are flashing and you can't really get a glimpse of his face and his eyes are all white, milky white,
and his
glazed
fingertips
over,
are gone.
And I'm like, what is this? Like, we're in some weird horror movie for Star Wars horror movie.
It's a little too gruesome for Star Wars.
And his mouth is all like dark, like he's maybe been bleeding out of his mouth, and it just was like all weird. I just thought to myself, what is going on?
Yeah. And they came to play. This is going to be a weird movie.
Yeah, and it only, honestly, then we don't really see Palpatine again. We see one hologram of him, but we don't see him again until the very end.
Right.
And now, not only is he weird zombie Palpatine, he's hooked up to like this War of the Worlds massive mechanical arm crane thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, where is that coming
What
from?
is that machine? How is that working? And yeah, it just was everything about that whole storyline, I thought, raised questions.
Should we talk about the ending of the movie now, or should we talk about that later? Let's talk about some other things we like, and then get to the ending later. I think we both agree that C-3PO is a very funny part of this movie. And
Yeah.
rightly so, should be. He was underutilized in Force Awakens. Was he even used? Oh yeah, he was used a few times in Last Jedi, but he stole the show for me.
There, yeah, he was fantastic. I mean, we both, especially the first time we saw it,
He had me in stitches
I
a
mean,
few times.
organic belly laughs that we're doing. Just thought it was so funny. I thought that this movie was incredibly funny.
Yeah,
They did a really great job with the humor in this one.
yeah.
Um,
And most of the humor came from C-3PO or Babu Frick.
Babu Frick. I think that
I'm Babu Frick.
I also think that there was good humor, sense of humor, chemistry between Finn and Poe.
Oh yeah. Uh huh.
And Poe had some funny things. I thought that Poe's interactions with Zori Bliss were super funny with the whole kissing thing, and then the end when he's giving her like the looks and she's like no, and he's like all right. It just those things were funny, but for sure C-3PO. I felt like this movie was the best of the 3 new trilogy movies for the legacy characters.
Oh yeah.
Like this was a good one where they had a good balance of they're still a part of the story. They're not just background anymore, but
We're
they're
still
not.
gonna use them.
They're
Except
not
for R2D2.
center scene. R2 still wasn't utilized hardly at all.
There were a lot of jokes that I caught the second time, and then Sean caught even more of them I didn't catch. My favorite joke is when Babu Frick is starting to plug in, and 3PO goes, "Wait, I just thought of another idea that." That to me is so funny that like at the last minute C-3PO is like, "Wait a second, I have another idea."
And Babu Frick's like, "Don't care." I thought that it was incredibly funny once he had the memory wiped. Everything he says when he has his memory wiped is funny to me. And one of the ones that just will be iconic to me is when someone says, "We got a transmission from Babu Frick," and C-3PO goes, "Babu Frick, he's one of my oldest friends." It's like so funny. Like you literally don't know anyone around you.
Okay, and then to the second time we see him talking to the First Order troopers, and he's just like blah 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 blah, and they're like, "That's not even a language."
The stormtrooper goes, "That's not even a language." Like he's just speaking gibberish. It was funny. There was a lot of funny stuff. I thought it was super funny when Chewbacca gets captured and they think that he has died, and they're like, "Well, Chewbacca had the dagger," and C-3PO is like, "Yes, I'm afraid so. Now it only lives in my memory." And they're like, "You're an idiot. Like, we need that information." And he's acting like, "Nothing I can do for you guys. I remember it, but, I can't tell you. Protocol. It's against my programming. I can't tell you."
Yeah, funny stuff. Another thing we all liked is the gang being all back together. Love the fact that Rey, Poe, and Finn, plus Chewie, BB-8, and C-3PO they had great chemistry. They had good humor. They played well off each other. I loved Finn and Poe being together for a lot of this movie because they are funny actors. Yeah. Rey is not as funny, but she has her moments where she gives expressions and stuff, and you're like, she's got it too. But it's definitely like more about Finn and Poe being the humor in this setup.
Yeah. And once again, just driving home tonight from the showing, I felt like on paper you would think it would maybe be too cluttered to have Finn, Rey, Poe, Chewie, C-3PO, and BB-8, 6 characters all together for large chunks of this mission. It's like that's too many. It's too crowded, but it worked. The dynamic, and that was a formula that worked for me.
Yeah. It
was fun. It was funny. There was enough where one person didn't have to carry every scene. Like everybody kind of got moments to shine.
Yep.
I really liked it. I thought that they were great together and gave something that the other movies hadn't given us.
Let's talk about Princess Leia's and her story. We all know Carrie Fisher passed away. They used footage from Force Awakens to put into this movie. Knowing that, I feel like they did a fantastic job of getting her in the movie. I'm glad that they used her. I'm glad that they gave her the story they did with her death. I thought that was an appropriate way to use her. That being said, her proportions looked funny to me. She still had a kind of a weird. They obviously had to place her into scenes. Sean brought up a good point where um, a lot of the dialogue around Princess Leia, they have these certain lines that they have of Leia, and so they had to then build conversations around what she said in order to fit it in. And a lot of times it was like kind of clunky, but
Oh, a great example of that is in the beginning where they're talking about whatever, and Ray's like, "Well, I'm gonna go run the training course," and BB-8's like, "Beep beep 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 beep," and Ray's like, "Sorry, BB-8, not even you can, or not even you can do that for me," or something like that. And Leia, yuck yuck yuck, never underestimate a droid. And I was like, why did they film that for Force Awakens? There's a reason they cut it, because it was like a throwaway line. It's just sometimes I felt like, especially the second viewing, I felt more like some of the things Leia says is just filler dialogue,
yeah,
but they have built a whole filler conversation around it. And it works in the sense that they have to establish that she is there and has relationships with these people and talks with these people. And um, I think that you and I both really loved the detail of Leia is training Rey,
oh my gosh, yes,
and Leia
yes.
is
Rey's master.
Rey's master. That was actually one of the times, the first time we saw it.
I didn't even think that was a possibility.
I got I teared up a little bit. I didn't fully cry, but I was like, oh, that like hit me emotionally for some reason.
Why was that never thought of by? I've never heard any theory about the fact that Leia would be training Rey, and it totally makes sense, and it's so awesome.
Considering that The Last Jedi is really well, that's not true. I take that back. I was going to say The Last Jedi is the first time that we see her use a significant force power. It's not, but I mean, it kind of is. In like a scene where it's like she's using the force here to McGonagall her way back to Hogwarts and fly back to the ship. But even with that, I didn't think in my mind. I had always had this idea of Leia that she was force sensitive and she could use the force, but she didn't want to train as a Jedi. And so that, coupled with this, in my mind, it's a 30-second scene, and we don't even get any dialogue because it's a Force Ghost Luke voiceover. But it was like, that's one of my favorite scenes. This is so cool that they did the CGI of the younger Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, Luke and Leia, and I heard the dialogue a little differently this time. She didn't have a vision of Ben's turn to the dark side. She had a vision of her son's death at the end of her Jedi training. That is what Luke says to Rey. That she stopped her training with the lightsaber and everything like that, gave Luke the saber because she had a vision of her son's death at the end of her Jedi path. That was the language.
Which comes to pass.
Which happens. Is exactly what happens.
It's the same vision that she had where Rey says Leia had a vision that she saw Rey and Kylo sitting on the throne of Palpatine.
Leia had that vision?
Yeah, that's what Rey says to Finn.
I thought Rey says that Rey had that vision.
No, Leia had the vision.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And which is true because Palpatine takes the life force out of Ben and Rey, and then it becomes the embodiment of both of them and sits on the throne.
I did not catch that. That is very interesting.
Yeah. So just like that, so Raven, these premonition visions you see, you can't get away from.
Can't get away from it.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't catch that about Leia's death happens at the Leia's end of her Jedi training.
No, it is.
The
vision is that she saw her son's death at the end of her path as a Jedi.
Yep, which happens.
Cool. So I really loved that.
I love this
that little touch when Rey says, "Yes, Master." I felt like it was so cool because we were talking about it before. I think it might have been in the footage we lost, where we talked about there are so many awesome master and apprentice relationships in Star Wars, on the light side and dark side. Palpatine, Darth Maul, Palpatine, Vader, Palpatine, Dooku, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, Obi-Wan, Luke, The list goes on. And
Luke Ray, kind of.
Luke Ray kind of, and I feel like I want my headcanon to be, and I think what the real canon is that if anybody gets the credit for Ray as being Ray's master, it's Leia.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Leia Ray is the master apprentice relationship.
So
because
cool.
If we remember from Luke, that guy didn't even want to train her. He promised her 3 lessons, only gave her 2. Like, didn't really train her in the ways of the Force. And I don't know if this is true or not, but this movie made me feel like when Rey goes to Ahch-To and sees Luke, that's the first time she is seeing him since she physically saw him on Ahch-To.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't get the sense that Luke has been visiting her for the past year. I think it's been all Leia. And I loved it. I thought that was such a cool
Agreed.
dynamic. And the other little cool thing I liked about the scene where they were training Luke and Leia as younger people was that Leia beat Luke. She like knocks him over, and it's just funny. Like he's like down on the ground lifting his visor, like, all right, I'm supposed to be training you. And so I liked that. And part of me thinks that Mark Hamill probably liked that, because it was probably indicative of their real life relationship too. But anyway, I thought that was handled really well.
Let's one more thing. Speaking of kind of the Force, there's a lot of cool Force scenes, a lot of interesting Force stuff, from new Force moves like the slide backwards into the stab, Rey's kind of float down, the jumping over the waves, the jumping over the ship, kind of those just very general moves that they do. And even there's in the throne room scene when they're fighting, Kylo does something. I can't remember. Anyway.
Well, even when they're fighting on the Death Star debris and the waves are crashing over them, they both are force freezing each other.
I love that.
They're force freezing each other's blades and then hitting each other. And it reminds me kind of the, not to get too deep cut here, but the Jedi Fallen Order video game that we both just played through. When you force freeze someone in that game, as soon as you hit them, they unfreeze. Mm-hmm. And that happened in the movie. Mm-hmm. They force freeze the blade, and then they hit the blade, and then they're unfrozen.
Yep. Same thing in Battlefront 2. When Kylo freezes someone and you hit them, it unfreezes them. Yeah, but they're also dead. But
and then I also felt like at the end of the movie, in the Sith throne room area, I caught it more the second time. I felt like Rey was force catching blaster bolts in the air and redirecting them and killing people with their own blasters.
Yeah.
She was like freezing them and shooting them other ways. I'm like,
catching them in her hand, and
which is what obviously the very first force power we see Kylo Ren use.
Well, Vader can force catch lightning bolts too.
Yeah. Well, I meant freezing the bolt in midair.
I was talking about Vader catching Han Solo's blast.
That's true. Yeah. So I thought there was a lot of cool force stuff.
But the big one is the life force, the transfer of life force. We see it in The Mandalorian on Wednesday, and then we get it in the movie on Thursday. She heals the snake. Interesting. We learn that part of her is given away when the life force is used. She uses it on Kylo. We talked about that. It's very interesting, and the new Force things that rarely bother me, this one doesn't bother me. The Force is not some defined set of rules that we have to live by. It can be whatever we want it to be. And so in this movie, they wanted it to be used to heal people. I thought it was cool.
I only had one Force thing that was like, didn't work for me in this, but it's near the end, and so I'll save it for that part. But I also thought the new Force stuff was cool.
Excuse me.
And there were a couple times Rey using the Force that I actually was very surprised, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Her lightning bolt.
One of them being on Pisana when they think Chewie has been captured, and she first like pulls down that transport ship out of the sky, like, and pulls it back towards the ground. I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, she's not messing around. She is. She's powerful.
Yeah.
And she's pulling this thing down, and then Kylo is obviously there. We talked about this. Somehow walks out of that fiery explosion as if nothing has happened.
No problems
His hair
here.
perfectly billowing in the Pasana wind. And I'm like, what is it? What did he have, like, the best seatbelt in the galaxy on that thing? That thing was rolling, and he's like, I'm good. I'm good, everybody. I'm just coming out here. I wanted to see my girlfriend Ray. So he comes out, and he starts. I couldn't tell when he does it. I'm like, is he also pulling it down? Is he pulling it toward him?
Seemed like it was a tug of war.
So they're like doing this tug of war. Anyway, she shoots the lightning, and first of all, the first thing is we think Chewie has died, and Daisy Ridley did a fantastic job in that scene because as soon as she does it, she lets out a John Boyega-esque scream, like Chewie, like she realizes that she just killed Chewbacca. And I thought for real it happened. I'm like, oh, they're making choices. J.J. Abrams is not messing around. They just killed Chewbacca, yeah. And but I didn't even put together like, oh, she's a Palpatine. I just thought that's a dark side power. We've seen Count Dooku use it. We see Palpatine use it, obviously. And yeah, I just thought, oh, she really lost control and tapped into the dark side because Kylo made her so angry that he was challenging her, type of thing. A couple little things too that and still in my likes. I wanted to talk specifically, just real briefly, about Chewbacca. I think a weird Chewbacca is obviously a fan favorite. He's kind of obviously this endearing character, but there's also like a lot of funny things that have happened to Chewbacca in the movies that the fans feel like he has been slighted or disrespected, and this movie seemed to like overly tried to make up for that. Yeah. And I wasn't mad at it. I'm like, all right, cool. Like they're acknowledging Chewbacca deserves look something up. Yeah, Chewbacca deserves some more respect. Some of the things were the fact that he's on the mission and he's actually being, a part of the mission. I really liked that when he got captured, they made it immediately a priority. Once Rey sensed that he was on that ship on Kijimi, they immediately made it priority to like go and get him. Like, all right, we're going onto that capital ship. Like, there's no questions asked. We need to find Chewbacca. And they go back for him. And I really liked that. I thought that Jonas Suamo, or whatever his name is, the actor, did a pretty good job of emoting Chewbacca's reaction when Chewbacca finds out that Leia has died, when they go back to that rebel base, the resistance base, and Chewbacca finds out and is obviously very distraught that that she has passed away. And then at the end, Maz Kanata gives him his well-deserved medal that a lot of people felt like in A New Hope he didn't get a medal at the end of the Battle of Yavin. And we were watching a video today that I guess he does get a medal in a book or a comic or something like that. They retcon that. And so maybe that's a contradiction, and I want them to stay consistent with the books and comics, but stuff like that, I'm like, that's so obscure. Most fans are not going to know that
I think we would agree that it's Han's medal.
Yeah, I think it's probably Han Solo's medal, like as a here you can keep Han's medal. Because Leia had it when she lays down. And so yeah,
I was trying to look up to see if it was Han's or Luke's. I'm pretty sure it's just Han's.
But yeah, I liked Chewbacca. I liked Chewbacca's interaction with Lando. I liked that as soon as we see Lando on Pasana, Chewbacca reacts really excitedly.
Oh yeah, and Lando's excited to see him too.
And Lando's like, yeah, good to see you, old buddy. Like, I just felt like I liked that fan service nostalgia of the legacy characters and the relationships that they've had their entire lifetimes, you know.
I'm done with my likes.
Oh, the last one I was going to say, my last thing on my likes was just the music. I mean, we talked about that in the non-spoiler, but...
Did you see John Williams got a cameo in the movie?
John Williams got a cameo in the movie. You pointed it out to me the first time. You caught it right away that he's like the bartender on Kijimi. And I felt like the second time we saw it, I really tried to pay attention to all the times John Williams used Rey's theme and Kylo's theme and the Imperial March and Palpatine's theme. It's just constantly interwoven, and then nostalgic music coming through on all these parts. It was pretty good.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things we didn't like.
Okay.
I'll start us off here. let's talk about the promise that we had from all of the media beforehand, from J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy, about this being the culmination of the 9 movies and the prequels. The what from the prequels was actually in this movie?
I think you and I can only pinpoint one thing that is like a tie to the prequels, which is Rey hearing the voices of all
That's
the
it.
Jedi
That's it.
at the end.
Nothing else. The prequels are not touched.
Other than Palpatine, which is
He's not a prequel. I mean, he is.
He is.
I mean, so is the Lars Homestead. So is the planet Tatooine. So is,
Yeah.
you know,
Right. Palpatine.
the blockade runner.
Palpatine isn't unique to the prequels.
Right.
And those things you just said aren't unique to the prequels, but they're in the prequels. The only thing unique to the prequels in that movie were the voices of Hayden Christensen as Anakin, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, and then a smattering of animated character voices.
From the Clone Wars.
Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan from Rebels, Ashley Eckhart or Eckstein as Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars, and a couple other Jedi.
Kanan from Rebels.
Yeah, that are from the Clone Wars animated series and Rebels animated series. So I'm like, okay. But I mean, let's talk about that scene real quick. We both were hoping for and expecting to see a group of Force ghosts. That we were going to see Hayden Christensen.
That would be cool.
We were going to see Ewan McGregor.
Why couldn't they do it?
You know, I wouldn't have been mad at all for a full Return of the Jedi style, all of them standing with their arms around each other at the end of the movie type thing.
Kind of would have maybe been a little bit too much Resurrection Stone from Harry Potter. I feel like she's like dying, but then she sees all these Force ghosts come and say like, we're all in you. We're all with you right now, you know?
Yeah.
But
you're right. I think, well, first of all, that was a 30-second scene. And other than that, there's no other prequel ties.
That's it for the prequels.
There's no other prequel ties.
Unless you guys can find something. Unless you know of something. Because I was looking even more the second time. Still didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing.
But
why'd they have to do that to the prequels?
There was a cool cameo from Wedge Antilles in the last space battle.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, so that was kind of like a unique original trilogy thing that was like a cool cameo.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that space battle.
Yeah.
That's
on my list.
Both do not like that ending space battle. It was confusing. It was what? How does a fleet of 20 ships at the beginning even come close to competing with an armada of 1,000 ships? That's insane to me at first. Like,
I couldn't believe that.
There's 20 ships. We've got 1,000. Blow them up.
And it was like, okay, get down to their altitude so that they can't fire on us. But then every one of those ships presumably is going to have, you know, battalions of TIE fighters.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, how... And I think they did try to convey, okay, they were getting their butts kicked at one point. But I'm like, no, their butts were kicked like in the first 2 minutes of this battle. They should have all been decimated. Uh-huh. And it's hard to gauge because it's cutting back and forth between the space battle and what's going on the ground with Palpatine and Rey and Ben Solo.
It's not a satisfying space battle. And Sean and I talked about how there's no real like storyline going. Well, there is a storyline, but it's more a storyline of Finn and Janna.
The ground
more than anything.
The ground crew that were going on the Star Destroyer.
They're trying to explode and get the tower down. Like, that makes sense. Everyone else Poe's just flying, just doing whatever.
I think what did work in the scene is I think you're getting pretty good character development for Poe.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Where he's seeing everything crumbling around him and he can't turn the tide by himself.
There's just too many of them.
And then Lando comes in a true Avengers Endgame fashion. Like, just kidding, we're all here.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, yeah, like, and he's like, but there's more of us, Poe. There's more of us.
You brought up a good point yesterday. We see all the ships, Kylo's, Rey's, and the Resistance ships have to go through this red kind of cluster of gas and rocks.
Through this maze and treacherous path to get to Exegol. And then all of a sudden, Lando comes in. There's more of us, Poe. And he'll come over. There's 1,000 resistance ships now. I'm like, did they all go through the red cloud thing?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there an alternate path everyone could have taken? Because and the other thing I was laughing with you about was Poe is watching, everyone is dying. Like all Snap Wexley dies, and all these pilots are going down, and Poe's like, sorry, there's too many of them. Like just despair. And then Lando comes in. There's more of us, and Poe like thrusts forward and comes over the top of this Star Destroyer and is like, boom, we got 1,000 ships. And I'm like, what are all those ships just sitting there for? They should have been attacking right when they jumped, right when they arrived.
We're waiting for your orders, General.
And I'm like, how did none of that final order fleet see this large amassing of ships over there?
Yeah, I don't know.
It didn't make any sense. And then the other thing that we both wanted out of that was we thought there was a big missed opportunity for there to be more maybe Easter eggs or cameos of
show us who's in the Ghost.
Who are in these ships?
Show us some Mon Calamari.
And I felt like even if you didn't have people that we knew, like it doesn't have to be a character cameo, but show me some Mon Calamari and show me some humans and show me some other aliens and show me that the entire galaxy,
some huts, some
Gungans,
Ewoks, yeah, exactly.
Give me, you could have had a Naboo cruiser from Episode 1 and looked inside the cockpit and seen humans and Gungans together on that ship. You could have given me more like this is
a galaxy-wide response.
Yes, all races and creeds and species are answering the call to come defend the galaxy.
But instead, we just see a bunch of faceless ships.
Faceless ships
do what?
Do nothing. We never see any of those ships really come in and take. It's like, okay, the Falcon comes in, and now they're blowing up more ships. I'm like, I didn't see any bigger ships go toe to toe.
Yeah,
I want to see a Hammerhead Corvette come in and take something out. I want to see a Mon Calamari cruiser come. I want to see what I didn't see.
Yeah, there wasn't any of that.
Anyway, but I did love this movie.
I loved it too.
So one of the things that I had on my likes and dislikes list is Luke Skywalker, his use in the movie. I liked everything about how he was used. The only reason I had it also in my dislike column is I felt like it was so short.
How little he was used.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
I felt like, man, we could have had a little bit more Luke, couldn't we have? Like, it would have been nice to have a little bit more Luke. I wanted Luke interacting with Kylo Ren or Ben Solo. I wanted Luke. It was, once again, the first time we watched it, I leaned over to you almost probably halfway through the movie. We were probably about to see Luke. And I was like, where's Luke? I'm ready for Luke to be in this.
I'm ready for Luke.
Yeah, I'm ready for Luke to be in it. Like, where is he?
As soon as I saw we were on Octo, I kind of knew he was going to show up.
I just thought for sure he shows up here. She throws the lightsaber, he catches it, which is like he tossed the lightsaber over his shoulder in Last Jedi. I thought
for sure he was going to say something similar to what Obi-Wan says to Anakin when Anakin drops his saber. But I was like, oh wait, Luke wasn't part of that conversation, so that wouldn't make sense. But yeah, instead he says, what does he say? Like, don't.
A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect than this, or something like that. But I loved the whole Octo sequence with Luke. I felt like he was super optimistic and super.
And it didn't seem to retcon The Last Jedi.
No, the first time we watched it, I thought it kind of did, and then the second time I realized, no, it's perfectly consistent. Yeah. He says he was wrong for staying on the island and fear kept him there. And I think that's what we see at the end of Last Jedi is he realizes after meeting and training Rey for that little bit that he was wrong, and that's why he came back with the Force projection.
Yeah, we get to learn the existence of Leia's lightsaber. I liked it. I thought it was a beautiful design. I think it's so cool that Leia has a lightsaber.
Absolutely.
I think it's awesome that, it was given to Rey to use. And then we get to the scene with the X-Wing, which is such a great, another bit of fan service, but well deserved and well earned fan service of Luke finally lifts the X-wing out of the water,
I
and
loved it
uh-huh,
because it goes all the way back to Empire Strikes Back when he can't lift the X-wing out of the swamps in Dagobah, and Yoda has to do it for him. And it's like this time you even see the
the
smirk,
look on his
the
face.
smirk on his face, like I got it
Yeah,
this
we're
time.
good. Don't
And
worry.
once again, it establishes again what Yoda established in Last Jedi, that the Force Ghost can interact with the physical world. He catches the lightsaber. He lifts the X-wing out of the water. Like, first of all, how's that X-wing even still functioning? It's been under that water for like years.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need to get into that. But I really liked all that stuff with Luke, and I just wanted a little bit more. I wanted some more Luke Skywalker. I mean, he's my. It's cliche, but he's my favorite character.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about something we haven't talked about is the Dark Ray scene.
Oh yeah, it was so short
It was short and
almost inconsequential.
uh-huh.
If we were looking for some sort of
Does
Empire
she-
Strikes Back, Luke facing Vader in the dark side cave on Dagobah, we did not get that.
It was almost kind of like the Frodo and
Bilbo Baggins.
Bilbo Baggins scene where he's like
It was
that was
exactly like
that was
that.
weird. I did not like that. Her teeth sharpened and
It was interesting because at the very beginning of the movie, okay, I got another thing to talk about Luke, but the very beginning of the movie, Leia tells Rey, don't be ashamed or don't be afraid of who you are.
mm-hmm.
And then Darkseid Rey also says that. Like, don't be afraid of who you are. More like the dark side, like, you're a Palpatine,
Yeah.
don't be afraid of that, embrace it. And then she has a very brief fight with Darkseid Rey, which I'm assuming is just like a Force vision type thing. And then she falls out of the thing, and Kylo's there, and that whole thing starts, and the Darkseid Rey thing never comes up again.
Yep.
But the thing I was going to bring up with Luke was Luke seems to reveal to Rey, like, you're a Palpatine. And Rey seems surprised, like, how do you know? And Luke's like, Leia knew too. So I'm like, Luke and Leia both knew that she was a Palpatine? How did they know that? How did Luke and Leia know that she was a Palpatine? I don't understand that.
Could they just sense it?
I don't know.
Did Maz know? Well, no.
One of the things
In
from
the Force Awakens-
Awakens, they cut away a lot to play like
Maz
Han,
says, "Who's the girl?" Like Han knows.
like Han and Leia know. So anyway, that was just interesting that Luke reveals to her, like, because you're a Palpatine, and she's like, and Luke's like, Leia knew too.
in her,
It's like, okay, how
Force,
do any of you know?
in her Force vision when she touches the lightsaber in Force Awakens, do we hear the Emperor?
Not that I remember, but I don't know. I don't think so. Do you think so?
I thought I remember we talked about how the Emperor's in that Force back.
Oh, I don't know.
I have to look it up. Anyway.
We'll have to rewatch the movie, I guess.
Another thing my brothers brought up, which I thought was very funny. I was texting them yesterday. What exactly did Finn have to say to Rey?
When they're falling into the sinking
Falling
pits.
into the sand, Poe asks him on when they're about to die, and wasn't there another time where he was brought up? Oh, in the caves.
Rey asks him, "What were you going to say?" Right
Uh-huh.
after it happens.
So what was he? They never bring it back. My brothers said, and I agree with them, that Finn probably was going to say, "I've been feeling the Force," or "I'm in touch with the Force," or "I'm getting more." Because it sets up several times that Finn and even the other defected, kind of losing our defected First Order troopers had a feeling, and then Finn corrects her and says a Force.
I think that they absolutely have established that Finn is Force sensitive.
Yeah.
The fact that even at the end when Rey dies, Finn immediately feels it, which is like that's always been associated with Force sensitivity, that you can feel when someone dies or a presence or something like that or whatever. So I'm like, he must be Force sensitive. When they're falling into the pit though, my immediate reaction was that I thought Ray, I got to tell you something, was gonna be this Finn being like, I'm in love with you type thing. Like, I love you, I have feelings for you, I care about you. Like, I just, before we die, I have to tell you I love you. Which to me made the most sense. But then when you told me that was what your brother said, I'm like, that could very well also be it. Um, but then I thought in my head, if I'm about to die, why
Why
do I so desperately need to tell
Hey,
Ray
just
that
so
I'm
you know, I
feeling the
had the
force?
force.
Yeah.
Oh.
Why do I so desperately need to tell her that when I think I'm about to die that I've been feeling the force? To me, it would be more of a confession of love.
So what's the actual answer then?
I think it's a confession of love.
Okay. Well,
but then it's never brought up again.
It's
Is
never
the point?
talked about.
That's the point. Is like it's never, the thread doesn't ever continue.
My last complaint before we get to the end of the movie is we didn't see Rey get to use her saber. I have been waiting for several movies to see Rey have her own saber, and we get it in the last 20 seconds of the movie.
They missed an incredible marketing opportunity to give her own saber.
I don't even care about the marketing. I care about.
I'm just saying it was the right move to give her own saber, and they didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean,
she should have had it this entire movie. Once Anakin's saber was destroyed at the end of Last Jedi, she should have had her own saber to start this movie.
Yeah, created with her master Leia.
Yeah, and it should have been her bow staff with the yellow blade.
Which is what it was. I love the saber. Absolutely love it. Love that it's yellow. I need to figure out what the yellow means. It means something, right? Those colors, right?
Yeah, it does.
I think it's a dual-bladed saber. I think there's another end to it.
I think it's like a spear. She has like a long staff and then just like kind of a shortened blade on it.
You pulling my leg?
Why can't I have an opinion on what it is?
Oh, I just thought maybe you were joking. I'm like, that sounds really stupid.
Well, you're stupid.
Well, I mean, we knew that staff was meaningful as soon as it started in episode 7. So I like that they made it a saber. And her switch is different too. It's like a turn switch or something. It's not like a push button.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if they do start coming out with Rey Saber. I feel like they should.
So my last thing is, do you have anything else for the ending?
No.
So my last thing is, before we get into the actual ending with Palpatine and all that stuff, was that end shot of her on Tatooine.
Yeah, why is she there?
I like that she has her own saber. I didn't dislike her interaction with the old woman about Rey. Rey who? Rey Skywalker. So those conversations are a little contrived to me. Mm-hmm. It's like, no one really asked that. Who are you? Rey? Rey who? Like come on, say it type of thing. But I just felt like the big thing that you and I talked about, why is she on Tatooine?
Yeah.
Why did she go back to Tatooine? First of all, we joked about how Anakin's Force Ghost maybe would have been there, but he hates sand.
Didn't want to go.
So he's like, if you would have gone to Naboo, Anakin's Force Ghost would have been partying with you. But instead, we're getting...
And we also talked about how what would be a better ending would it have been, I feel like Rey should have gone back to her AT-AT on Jakku and been like, and like seeing like, this is my life, this was my life, but now I'm not sure that I like that either. I like it better when
I don't like that.
when we talk about flipping the last two scenes where she leaves the Exegol, goes straight to Tatooine or whatever planet she needs to go to leave the lightsabers, and then goes to visit her friends. Why does it end on this desert planet?
She ends on the desert planet that she has no connection to. Leia also has no connection to. Luke lived his adolescence there, but only ever dreamed of leaving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anakin, had a terrible experience there on Tatooine, hated the sand. His mother died there. His turn to the dark side starts there when he slaughters all the Tusken Raiders. It just is like
the men and the women
and the children too.
Yeah.
and they were animals, and he slaughtered them like animals. And it just was like, why is she going back to Tatooine and burying these lightsabers at the Lars
Why do you need to
homestead?
bury him in the first place?
And the only explanation is fan service.
Yep.
That it just was a fan service decision of the binary sunset,
It's
the
one of the
twin
things I like.
suns,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Like, oh, this is how Luke started in A New Hope. This is the last shot of the entire saga. Again, which just happened in Last Jedi.
Throwing a middle
and it's
finger
always
to the prequels.
the same score, like, na, 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 na. And so it's like, all right, it didn't ruin the movie for me, and I like the Leia and Luke Force Ghost. Ben should have been there too, but I felt like this is one of the fan service moments that didn't work for me.
In our feature video, when we talk about what we would change in Episode 9, this will be a big part of that movie.
Yeah.
Video.
I already kind of shared with you my big change for that would have been, don't even go to Tatooine. The last scene should have been Rey establishing a Jedi temple. I wanted the last shot to be her training some younglings.
Well, I liked your idea of having that's where Ben Solo goes to offer his, to exile himself and to ask for his forgiveness, and he just lives on the Lars homestead in solitude until Rey comes to get him and says, "Come with me." Like, you don't need to live in exile anymore. We've forgiven you, but that's a totally different story.
Yeah, so we'll discuss that in a different video.
Okay, last part, the end of Palpatine. It's tough. It's rough. It's weird. It's unsatisfying. It's fast. It's predictable. It's stupid.
You had so many adjectives.
I didn't like it.
I think that a lot of the things that we've talked about dislikes, once again, I'll say, no single one ruined the movie for me. I think it was a fantastic movie. I really liked it. And I think it's in the top half of my rankings, probably. Not for Joseph, though. Not for Alex Damon. But what I will say is that the character of Palpatine in the prequels and the original trilogy, to me, was a extremely smart, cunning, conniving, manipulative puppet master. And in this one, I feel like he comes across as this
sadistic,
fanatical, religious, sadistic, zealotous creature.
Mm-hmm.
And it was way too focused on this Sith ritual, and I'm going to possess your body and all. I'm like, what is this? What is going on?
All those other creatures and
this whole galley arena full of these people swaying, and I'm like, what is going on? What is happening right now? It was weird and creepy, and it didn't feel like Palpatine. It didn't feel like the character Palpatine. It felt very different. Like this is some weird Sith zombie thing. With that said, the one new force thing that didn't really work for me was this whole thing they were pushing of the dyad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are a dyad in the force. And when they kept saying that, I thought in my head, are we supposed to know what that means? Is that like a thing in Star Wars?
That somewhere?
Like what is this? They're using it to explain everything, and it was just kind of this vague, well, they don't really explain it at all, but they're going to use it as the reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's their bond.
Their dyad.
And I'm like, how are they a dyad? They were acting like, okay, because Kylo was the grandson of Vader and Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine, that means they were a dyad. I'm like, what? Because Vader and Palpatine were master and apprentice? They weren't related.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't understand how that qualifies them as a dyad. So should every Sith master and apprentice just make sure they have kids so their grandchildren can form these dyads? Like, I don't understand the whole how it works. And so, and then when Palpatine is like, "You're a dyad. Oh, let me suck out the life force here and revive myself." I did like that the way that he manipulated Rey at the beginning, using the same manipulation that he used against Anakin and Luke Skywalker.
Strike me down. Mm-hmm.
He in the prequels he tells Anakin, only through me will you have the power to save Padme. He tells Rey, only by striking me down will you gain control of the fleet and obtain
Save
the power to save your friends.
Mm-hmm.
He tells Luke, strike me down, and only by striking me down will you be able to save your friends. He tells Rey, only by striking me down will you have the power. So he manipulates, saying that I have what you want, do what I say, and you will have the power to do what you need to do.
And she doesn't. Yeah.
And she doesn't do it. Yeah. And so that, I mean, I did like that part, that was consistent with him, but the dyad thing, I didn't understand.
I didn't like the Force lightning.
Well, the dyad thing then turns into, okay, they're a dyad, and then I didn't like Palpatine is the embodiment of thousands of generations of Sith, and Rey is the embodiment of thousands of generations of Jedi. And I'm like, 1,000 generations live in her? Because the only voices we've heard are people from the last 40 years. And so, where's the Jedi Masters from the Old Republic here? Like, from 1,000 years ago. But I just got a little bit too, like, all right. We talked a lot about the final battle. I think you had some funny thoughts about that.
Yeah, like, especially with the lightning. We've seen him do it before with Mace Windu and Luke Skywalker.
First of all, when he shoots the lightning into the air, I'm like, that's pretty epic.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. That he was that powerful, like, boom, and, like, the whole sky erupts in this tree of lightning.
But then he puts it onto Rey. She catches it with her lightsaber. Okay. Immediately, Palpatine should have been like, oh, wait, I've seen this before from Mace Windu. And done. I want to try something else. Speaking of which, I was just shown that I can toss you guys around like rag dolls. Why don't you show that?
Ben and Rey both had their lightsabers ignited when he hadn't even been revived yet.
Mm-hmm. And he just went...
He was still the husk thing on the crane, like limp noodle flopping around. And even in that state, he's able to grab both of them, hurl them into the air towards him, and force them to their knees as he starts to suck out the life force. And I'm like, you can do that in your weakened state, but then when you're fully revived, all you can do is, I'm committed to the lightning. It's not working, but this is what I'm doing,
and then
people.
As soon as you see that she can block it with her lightsaber, keep it on her, keep it on her, keep it on her. And then, oh, she's got 2 lightsabers, keep it on her, keep it on her. Oh, it's coming back and getting you, keep it on her, keep it on her. Yeah. Oh, you're dissolving, keep it on her. Like,
he should have just immediately, as soon as she blocked with the lightsaber, okay, you stop, you grab her again, ragdoll her around a little bit,
destroy the lightsaber,
smash her on the ground like Hulk smash her back and forth, and then blast her again with the lightning. I'm like, I don't understand what he's thinking. We were laughing in the car on the ride home, like, 1,000 generations of Sith live in him, and nobody has a better idea. Those voices in his head need to be like, bro, it ain't working.
This again?
This ain't working. Listen.
I got an idea. By Mace Windu. Mace Windu has you beat.
I got an idea. Stop the lightning. Just put the lightning down. Palpy. Put the lightning down. Or trying something else. Like, it just didn't make sense. And it was too Harry Potter, Voldemort, like, to me, this final duel. And I thought knew
she was going to win.
I thought that the CGI of him dissolving, disintegrating, like, wasn't super good effects.
Too much for me.
And it just was like, all right, it's like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The faces are melting off, and it felt like Harry Potter, and then also like kind of like Avengers Endgame of, I am all the Sith, and it's like, well, I am all the Jedi. It's like the Thanos Tony Stark conversation. So that, I didn't think that ending was that great. The second time I watched it, I felt even more like Palpatine could have put up more of a fight or been more formidable.
Here's my question. I mean, technically, Rey did kill him. So does she have the Sith in her?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't. Maybe not because he had been revived at that point. I don't know.
She did what he wanted her to do.
I don't know.
Anyway,
And he died once. Is he just going to come back again? He's probably got a few vats of his body cloned in the back.
that's the thing. When you introduce cloning like that, and you show 6 Snokes, and you've come back to life, now we're just gonna be like, if they ever do this again, they'll be like, when's Palpatine gonna show up? You know?
Yeah. Anyway.
A disappointing end to a fun movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst. I think that it could have been better and explained better and maybe more thought out. But overall, I thought it was pretty satisfying. And as the movie as a whole is a pretty satisfying ending to this trilogy and to the whole saga.
Yeah. I said this in the previous video we recorded. The second time I watched this, and I'll just wrap it up. Second time I watched this, I was not happy after the first time. I was not happy after seeing it the first time because Palpatine, Rey and Palpatine, I hate that she's a Palpatine. Second time, I went into it thinking, it's not going to change. She is a Palpatine. That is now canon. That is now what happens. That is the story going forward is Rey as a Palpatine. No amount of your criticism is going to change that. So just enjoy the movie for the fact that Rey's a Palpatine. And I enjoyed it a lot more knowing that she's a Palpatine. I don't think it's the right choice. Still love the movie. Would have kept her a nobody.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm neutral on that choice. I don't think it was a terrible choice, but I don't think it was like absolutely necessary for it to happen.
But again, I say, if she wasn't a Palpatine, what would change in the movie?
I think the biggest thing that it does is it gives people who, it gives the subset of fans who felt like she was way too powerful in the Force in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Without any training, she was way too powerful. How is she so powerful if she hasn't trained at all? It gives some credence to that, maybe. But once again, I will always defend you don't have to be a certain lineage to be strong in the Force.
Sure.
Look at Anakin Skywalker. He was not from some powerful Force lineage, and he was the chosen one.
True.
So, but people, that was a criticism. People, the Mary Sue crowd always felt like Rey was too powerful and it wasn't explained. How is she already doing Jedi mind tricks and already able to face Kylo Ren and already able to lift rocks and all this stuff from the first 2 movies? It's like, well, now we have our answer. Because she was a Palpatine. And Palpatines just get stuff done, all right, people?
Let us know what you thought about the movie. Let us know.
There were so many details we still didn't even cover.
Yeah.
We didn't cover all the little minor new characters and Zori Bliss and all. I thought there's lots of great stuff in this movie that we didn't even cover. We just tried to cover the big things that we liked and didn't
Tell us
like.
if we missed anything. Tell us if you disagree. Tell us what you think of Rey being a Palpatine. Tell us if there are any prequel cameos that we missed, because I am desperate to find any.
Tell us if you think Luke Skywalker should have shown up as a Force ghost in the throne room at the end and actually been the one to kill Palpatine, because I thought that was a very viable fan theory that I wanted to have.
But anyway, Sean, it's been a pleasure watching these movies with you.
I'm so glad we got together to do this. It was so fun going to the theater multiple times.
Yep. We have a big year for 2020 in store for you guys. We're not going to tell you what, but just make sure you stay put with us because things are happening.
Things are happening.
And that's where I'll
At
leave
first,
it.
I didn't know what you were talking about. Then I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, in the meantime, before we see you again,
like, comment, subscribe. We learned on YouTube 101 that you have to challenge people to do that every time.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button. Subscribe. Share this with all your friends.
And in the meantime, keep those socks salty.
Keep them salty, people.
We love ya.